Welcome to today's deep dive. We are super glad you're here. So today we are looking at a dispatch from a hobbyist blog, and it's by an author named Ang.
Right, from back in April of 2026.
Exactly, April 2026. And the post is called Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 243. And it's subtitled, The Rising Issue of Mislabeled Fish.
Which sounds super niche at first, I know.
It really does. It zeroes in on this very specific, premium aquarium fish.
Yeah.
But what it actually reveals is, well, it's this massive shift in how we trust physical retail stores.
Oh, absolutely. And it also gets into why the AI on your phone has suddenly become your ultimate on-the-fly consumer shield.
Yeah, we're basically taking you through this really wild intersection of analog nature hobbies and cutting-edge tech. Because usually when we think of being scammed, we picture a very specific kind of shady environment.
Oh, for sure. You picture the trench coat in the alley.
Totally. Like you are buying what you think is a luxury watch out of the trunk of a car in some back alley. You hand over the cash, and the watch, I don't know, ticks a little too loudly. The second-hand stutters.
The context itself is basically a giant warning sign. You implicitly understand the gamble you're taking.
Right. The setting perfectly matches the deception.
You are on guard because you are dealing with these manufactured objects in a completely unauthorized space.
But step out of that alley and into the fluorescent-lit, slightly damp-smelling world of a local pet store.
It's the damp smell. Exactly.
Right. And your guard just drops completely.
Yeah.
We have this built-in psychological expectation that nature, especially when it's neatly packaged in a brightly lit retail setting, is inherently honest.
We really do.
You look at a fish swimming in a tank and you look at the printed laminated label taped to the glass and you just assume that label is an undisputed biological fact.
We treat that printed retail label with an incredible amount of unwarranted authority. I mean, it's the absolute definition of a false sense of security.
Yeah.
The physical space, the clean aisles, the bubbling filters, the uniformed employees, all of it creates this veneer of expertise that just lulls the consumer into passive trust.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Ang starts this dispatch by highlighting a really frustrating trend in local fish stores.
Yeah, this trend of stores mislabeling fish species and then just slapping a premium price tag on them anyway.
The specific prime example Ang gives from recent store visits is this fish called the Apistogramma agassizii double red.
Just the naming convention there, the double red, it does a tremendous amount of heavy lifting in a retail environment.
It really sounds expensive, doesn't it?
It does. It signifies this elite tier. It tells the buyer that this isn't just some wild animal pulled out of a river somewhere. It's the result of highly specific, curated genetics.
Like if I'm looking at tanks, I might think a single red is fine, but clearly the double red is the luxury model here.
Right. Obviously, you want the double.
To put this in perspective for you listening, think about this like buying clothing. Imagine you walk into a high-end boutique and find this highly sought-after designer jacket, and you pay top dollar for it. It has all the premium tags, the special branding, the whole 9 yards. But when you get it home into natural light, you notice the stitching is kind of frayed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the cut is slightly asymmetrical, and the fabric just feels cheap. You eventually realize you just paid thousands of dollars for a factory reject.
Ouch. A reject that was supposed to be quietly diverted to a discount outlet mall somewhere.
Exactly. That dynamic is exactly what Ang is witnessing in these fish tanks.
Because Ang notes that they actually know what the genuine, vibrant, double red variety is supposed to look like.
They know what they're looking for.
Right. But what they're actually seeing in these retail tanks are, and I'll quote the text directly here, rejected batches with duller colors or entirely different varieties.
Wow.
And the crucial mechanism of this trap, the part that really stings, is that these duller, rejected fish are being sold at the exact same high price point as the genuine premium specimen.
That phrase, rejected batches, it tells a whole story about the supply chain before the fish even hits the store, right?
It really does, because breeding these animals isn't a factory assembly line. Genetics are messy.
Super messy.
A breeder might get a small percentage of true, vibrant double reds in a single batch, and the rest simply don't make the genetic cut.
But those breeders know exactly what they have produced. They possess a substandard biological product.
Yes. And in a functioning transparent market, those duller fish would be graded lower. They'd be priced accordingly as standard or lower tier varieties.
That would make sense.
Right. But somewhere along the line, whether it's at the wholesale level or the retail level, someone is deciding to maintain their profit margins by shipping or selling these culls under the premium double red name anyway.
They're using a specialty name that implies intense coloration and careful breeding to, like, artificially inflate the perceived value of a distinctly lesser specimen.
Exactly. And human psychology plays right into this trap.
Oh, totally. If a consumer walks in and sees a $50 price tag on a fish, our brains just naturally rationalize the discrepancy.
We do. We make excuses for it.
We think, well, it costs $50, so it must be the fancy one. Maybe the store lighting is just washing out the color today. Or, maybe the fish is just stressed out from being in the tank.
The price tag anchors our expectation of value. And we naturally assume the store possesses an expertise that we lack.
Right.
If the laminated label says it is a premium double red, the average buyer is going to assume their own uneducated eyes are deceiving them long before they assume the printed label is a lie.
Which brings up a massive question about the retail environment itself. Because when you see a duller fish with a premium tag, you have to wonder what is actually happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, is it a scam or just a mistake?
Exactly. And Ang brings up a really crucial ambiguity in the text. In a parenthetical aside, Ang mentions that these stores are mislabeling the fish, quote, whether intentionally or not.
That parenthetical aside does a tremendous amount of work in this dispatch, whether intentionally or not.
It really does.
It acknowledges that the financial damage to the consumer paying premium prices for a subpar product is identical regardless of the store's underlying motive.
I do want to push back on the idea of this being an intentional calculated scam at the store level, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just put yourself in the shoes of the customer in that aisle for a second. You are staring at a massive wall of bubbling tanks. Now, imagine being the employee running those tanks.
Overwhelming, to say the least.
Right. Are we really supposed to believe there is a widespread intentional conspiracy in local pet shops to defraud the double red enthusiast?
Probably not a massive conspiracy, no.
Or is it far more likely that distinguishing between an authentic double red and an entirely different variety is just genuinely impossible for a standard retail worker, someone who is making minimum wage and isn't, a specialized marine biologist?
I hear the empathy for the worker there, and it's a fair point. But whether it is pure malice from management or just an untrained teenager with a net, the retail system is fundamentally broken if the label on the tank is just a wildly expensive guess.
Fair enough.
What's fascinating here is that this situation perfectly illustrates a complete shift of the burden of proof entirely onto the buyer.
Yes, this is the core of it.
The store has effectively abdicated its role as an authority. It doesn't matter why the label is wrong. What matters is that the consequence of the error is entirely yours to bear.
And Ang spells this out clearly, stating that this trend, quote, really highlights why you've got to do your own research before dropping a significant amount of money on a new or unknown species.
The wording there, significant amount of money, it really shifts the stakes.
Yeah, we aren't talking about a 50-cent feeder goldfish here.
No, this is an investment in an unknown species, as Ang points out. And this exposes the core vulnerability of the modern hobbyist.
How so?
Well, you are relying on a supply chain that has clearly broken down. The store's label, which historically functioned as the ultimate arbiter of truth in a retail setting, is now demonstrably unreliable.
It really has been downgraded from a statement of fact to like a mere suggestion.
A very expensive suggestion. Seriously.
Yeah.
And when the physical store's label cannot be trusted, the entire social contract of retail starts to collapse.
It completely breaks down.
The store is basically presenting a fish and saying, hey, we claim this is a rare premium specimen. It is on you to prove us wrong.
Right.
The burden is entirely on you to authenticate the purchase in real time, standing in the middle of aisle 4 while the product is, actively swimming around.
It creates an incredibly fraught dynamic. You are participating in what should be a relaxing analog hobby.
Right, it's supposed to be fun.
Exactly. And instead, you are forced into the role of an adversarial quality assurance inspector.
That sounds exhausting.
If the old authority, the store, is compromised, a new authority has to step in to protect the consumer. And that leads to the climax of Ang's notes, which introduces a profoundly modern solution to this very physical, old-school problem.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You have this highly specific problem, right? You're identifying a moving visual target to avoid a deceptive retail markup.
And the solution Ang presents feels straight out of a sci-fi novel. Yet it is happening right now in mundane pet stores.
It's wild.
Aang writes, "Luckily, the rise of AI and LLMs has made this much easier. We can now get instant results to identify and research specific fish on the fly."
The phrase on the fly is the critical component of this entire equation.
It is such a wild juxtaposition. Think about this scene for a second. You are engaging in one of the most ancient analog hobbies imaginable, literally keeping a piece of aquatic nature alive in a glass box in your living room.
As old school as it gets.
And to defend yourself against predatory pricing or retail incompetence, you are pulling out your smartphone and leveraging large language models right there in the store aisle.
To understand why this is such a huge leap forward, we really need to look at how these LLMs actually function in this context.
Because it's not just a Google search.
Exactly. We aren't just talking about a text-based search engine where you type in, "What does a double red look like?" By 2026, these large language models have incredibly sophisticated multimodal vision capabilities.
Right, because typing a description of a fish into a search bar while you are looking at it is practically useless.
It really is.
You'd just be typing, like, small, sort of red and brown fish. Good luck with that.
Yeah, the results would be endless. Instead, you were taking your phone's camera, holding it up to a scratch glass tank, and dealing with the weird artificial blue and white LED lighting spectrums that are typical of pet stores.
Which distort the colors completely.
Right, and the LLM instantly isolates the fish, color corrects the image to account for that weird tank lighting, and maps its specific fin structure and pigmentation against massive databases.
That is just incredible.
It cross-references the physical specimen right in front of you with thousands of verified breeder reference photos, scientific papers, and hobbyist forum data, all in seconds.
It is literally like taking a world-class sommelier with you to the wine shop.
That's a great way to put it.
Except this expert lives in your pocket and specializes in obscure Amazonian cichlids.
Right. You don't have to go home, log onto a specialized message board, post a blurry photo, and wait 3 days for someone to tell you if it's a real double red.
You ask the AI right there while the employee is waiting to bag the fish for you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Aang is describing is a massive systemic leap in consumer empowerment.
Totally.
Historically, the retailer held absolutely all the cards. They held the inventory, they dictated the pricing, and most importantly, they monopolized the knowledge.
You just had to trust them.
If they told you a fish was a premium double red and you were a novice hobbyist, you had no immediate mechanism to contest that claim. That vast knowledge gap was the very thing that allowed stores to successfully sell rejected, duller batches at premium prices.
Because the stores knew you wouldn't know the difference until you got home. And honestly, maybe not even then.
Exactly.
You might just assume you were terrible at keeping fish. You might look at the tank and think, oh, my water parameters must be completely wrong. That's why my expensive premium fish looks so sad and dull.
The consumer essentially absorbs the blame for the retailer's deception or incompetence.
Wow, yeah.
But the introduction of AI and LLMs acts as a real-time equalizer. They take the unknown out of the unknown species. When Aang says AI provides instant results to identify and research, what they're really pointing out is that AI collapses that historical knowledge gap down to absolute zero.
The friction of verification has just been completely removed.
Completely.
You used to have to carry, I don't know, a heavy, specialized encyclopedia of fish species into the store, or spend hours prepping before you shopped.
Which nobody actually does.
No one has time for that.
No.
Now the LLM processes the visual information, synthesizes the collective intelligence of the internet, and delivers a definitive verdict before you ever even reach for your wallet.
It turns every single casual shopper walking through the door into an expert auditor.
An auditor, yeah.
You are no longer required to blindly trust the typed label on the glass. You are verifying it against a vast aggregate of human knowledge, curated and delivered by an algorithm in seconds. It is an incredibly powerful shield against exactly the kind of deceptive markup Aang is warning the community about.
So, what does this all mean? Let's just trace the arc of the journey we went on through Aang's dispatch today.
Sounds good.
We started with a localized, frustrating observation in the fish-keeping market, this rising trend of mislabeled fish. We looked specifically at how the Apistogramma agassizii double red is being used as a premium trap, where stores take duller, rejected batches or entirely different varieties and sell them at massive markups.
And we established that whether this happens due to calculated fraud or mere retail incompetence, the financial damage to the consumer is exactly the same.
Right.
The old reliance on the store's authority is essentially dead, and the burden of research rests squarely on the buyer before they spend a significant amount of money.
But the buyer isn't left defenseless. The emergence of instant AI and large language models has provided a perfect on-the-fly identification tool.
It really is perfect for this.
It acts as a real-time defense mechanism, instantly closing that knowledge gap that allowed these retail traps to function in the first place.
It empowers the individual hobbyist to navigate a murky, unreliable retail landscape with the unwavering confidence of a seasoned expert.
So the next time you are shopping for a niche hobby item, whether it is a rare houseplant, a specialized piece of hardware, or a supposedly premium aquarium fish, your absolute best defense isn't the store manager.
No, definitely not.
It's the multimodal technology already sitting right there in the palm of your hand.
This profound shift in how we verify information really raises an existential question about the physical spaces where we shop.
It really does. And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. We started today by talking about the feeling of buying a watch in an alleyway versus a brightly lit pet store, and how that clean retail environment gives us a false sense of security.
Right, the fluorescent lights.
But think about what Angus just revealed about the modern shopping experience. If an artificial intelligence can now instantly look through the scratched glass of a tank, compensate for the bad lighting, and identify a duller, rejected batch of a fish.
Yeah.
If the technology in your pocket makes you vastly more knowledgeable than the store's own printed label the second you walk in, what happens to the entire future of the physical retail experience?
That is the big question.
For 100 years, the store was the undisputed expert. You went there to learn from them. Now, because of LLMs, the moment you walk through the door, you are the ultimate authority. If every single customer has an infallible instant lie detector in their pocket, the store is no longer an authority at all. It is just a warehouse.